What is up, y'all? My name is Kevin Savage, and you're watching Kevin Savage TV. It's been a while since we released our last video. We've been doing a lot of stuff here, and what better way to bring back the videos on this channel but to touch back on the very first YouTube video that I released on this channel, which was how to sound like Peekaboo with the Peekaboo bass, and there was a free Ableton effect. So with this video, I went ahead and revamped that bass FX rack, and I'm gonna go ahead. If you check the description in box below, you can see how to get this 2.0 version of the Peekaboo bass rack, and I'll show you some of the new features on this rack. So don't go anywhere. We're gonna hop into Ableton. All right, so check it out. We are inside Ableton now. I've got a super basic project going on. I got some sidechain, I got some drums, and I have both the some samples, some really basic 808 sample, as well as a couple of other variations on the same 808. So I'm just going to show you. Basically, just keep this in mind. This is a effect rack. This is not an instrument. This goes on audio. Well, audio, and you could, I guess, also put it onto a MIDI channel. But the point of this is it's not an instrument in itself. It needs to modify a sample or a instrument. You can create an 808 inside Operator. You can create it inside Serum, whatever you choose to do. So you can create an 808 and then honestly play with this. See what sort of unique tones and sounds you can get out of this effect rack. In this case, I have 3 different samples, and you can hear kind of what tends to work better and what tends to not work so well. Now, these are all, I would say, very much bass heavy samples. When you tend to get into bass with more of the formats, the vocal kind of tones, the gurgly sounds, you might not get as good of sounds from the shaper. But honestly, just play around, because you have no idea what sort of unique sounds you can get out of one of your basses. Some are going to sound like crap, others are going to sound great. So check this out. This is the one of the bass sounds, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the shaper. Those dips that you're hearing, that's the side chain. I also faded in the end to kill the transients and faded out the end to just make things smoother. Here's another example. And then finally, so as you can see, a lot of them tend to be more bass heavy. They have some noise in the top end, but most of it is a low kind of bottom. And what's going on, if you start to dig a little bit deeper into the effect racks themselves, is I'm using a saturator to go ahead and process the sound, and that adds the tones and it splits the sound. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and show you the differences between the bass shaper that I made last year as well as the new bass shaper 2.0. So let's go ahead and go back to the first one over here, and let's go ahead, make sure everything else is muted. So as you can see, when you look at 1.0 right over here versus 2.0, just keep in mind, these are the full versions. These are the suite versions. So if you are running Ableton Intro or Ableton Standard, you might not get everything that I have on here, although I have made some kind of abridged versions of this effect rack because I had some requests when I released the last video. So what we have here is what the main change was adding an LFO to the sound, as well as pulling the noise from being baked into the rack and kind of giving it its own macro. So if we go ahead and listen to the first version, I'm going to go ahead and turn everything down. Let's go ahead and listen to what the sample sounds like just with basically everything turned off. Do you hear how it has that kind of that fuzzy kind of noise on the top? Now let's go ahead and listen to the one that I just recently made. Let me go ahead and turn everything off. it doesn't have that noise. The noise comes from its own macro. So if I start to boost the noise, you have that noise there. And the noise isn't always a bad thing. The noise helps a sound cut through a mix. It helps them cut through and give a presence to a sound when you're listening to it through like shitty speakers. So let's go ahead and kill that. Now, what I did is I added an LFO. I really started to shape this 2.0 version when I was working on my friend Annie Delgado's track. I did a remix of her song Galaxy. And I wanted an LFO in it and didn't want to do the shaping outside of the rack. And so what I did was I added this LFO. So you can go ahead and hear what it sounds like. Let me make sure it's on. Yeah, here we go. All right, so this is what the LFO does, right? I have it set to a quarter note. And then what we can do, you hear it normally play. And so this LFO it uses an auto pan, so just a basic Ableton effect, and it shapes the sound that way. Now, you could obviously adjust the rate of everything from a 64th note to, I wouldn't honestly go to this far as it really doesn't do much, but you know, a half note. You know, and obviously it's going to make sense in certain circumstances and not make sense in other circumstances. Or of course, there's also, you know, variations that are for triplets. So that is the main difference. But I'm going to go ahead and just show you the sound differences as well. So, you know, obviously you can, it's very similar to the first version. So a lot of the tones are going to be the same. The main thing is that LFO. But let's go ahead. If you hadn't watched the earlier version, you can go ahead and hear what this sounds like being applied to other samples. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and play with it with the earlier version. Let's throw some drums on it. And then, of course, there's the tuner, and the tuner is mostly just there. It gives some other sounds, but also allows you to tune the sample into the key of the track. But you can have some fun with it. And then, of course, bass, which allows you to just kind of shape kind of where that makes it a little bit more different. So let's check that out. Right, and that's very similar to this. You know, that's the earlier version. The updated version is very similar on those ends. So let's go ahead and get rid of the LFO. And then, of course, you apply it to some of the other samples. Let's try another version. And then, of course, the beauty of this plugin is I've also separated all of the chains and made them pretty easy to separate yourself. So I've got this little example over here where I split everything. So you can also hear kind of what's going on. So if we go ahead and just solo this split, as you could hear, let's go ahead and get rid of sub and turn on top. The top end is basically just noise. Let's make sure. Like, that's it. Doesn't matter what you turn. You can turn all these things up. It's basically just noise. And then, of course, you've got the mids, which do all the heavy lifting. And then you have the sub. Now you can obviously mute this. If you look over here, you'll see how as I switch between these, I've soloed out the chains that are being used. And the sub, you got the sub going on. You know, none of these modify it. Now, you still have the LFO on each one of these, so if you were to split things out, you can LFO pieces of the sound, you can LFO the noise, you can LFO the mids, whatever your heart's desire is. But I've really tried to make this this rack as user accessible as possible. Obviously, as always, you can shoot me a message if you have any questions about it. I'll do my best to answer it. And if you check the description box below, you'll see how you can get this effect rack for free, just like I made the Peekaboo Bass Shaper, the first version, for free as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. I highly recommend downloading this, throwing this on one of your tracks, and really play around. You'd be really surprised the versatility of this this rack. So definitely check it out, and leave a comment in the description to let me know what you think. If you have any questions, or there's other things that you want to see, other sorts of plugins you think would be cool for me to make, I'll do my best and try to make something like that. So I look forward to seeing your comments below. Take care, guys.